So, there's not going to be any sponsor prelude to this video. And also, I'm going to be turning off the music that you usually hear in the background. Because, quite frankly, it wouldn't be appropriate to have that stuff going on for this particular episode. Because it talks about some pretty serious topics, to say the least. Some dark undertones. Just wanted to give that forewarning because this is going to talk about some very sensitive topics, particularly when it comes to mental health. So, consider this your discretion warning. So, let's go ahead and get into it. What's happening, ladies and germs? This is the PackerMan, and welcome to this edition of Burnt Rubber. And for this edition, we're going to be talking about the man that you see on the screen right now, and that is late model dirt track legend Scott Bloomquist. Now, as some of you might know, Bloomquist died in an aircraft accident in August of last year at the age of 60. And it was quite the devastating loss for motorsports in general. Because Bloomquist, even though he only made a few NASCAR starts here and there, mainly when NASCAR was racing on the dirt tracks, he is still considered to be one of the best dirt late model drivers of all time. I think there was one stat that said that he had like over 600 feature wins or something like that, like some crazy number like that. So, he is a legend in the world of dirt racing. But then, August of last year, so we're coming up on almost a year since his death, he was involved in an aircraft accident at his home and was declared dead at the scene. Now, the reason why Bloomquist kind of returned to the forefront recently was because of a statement. It issued on June the 10th. The NTSB, the National Transportation Safety Board, released its report on the plane crash that resulted in the death of dirt racing legend Scott Bloomquist. And it was a pretty sobering report, to say the least. And a lot of us kind of had a feeling that this was the case, but to see it actually confirmed is pretty difficult, especially if you were a Scott Bloomquist fan, which I'm sure that there were many. So, of course, this article that I'm clicking on is on Flow Racing. And, of course, it's taking its sweet time to load in. So, The NTSB, in their investigation into Scott Bloomquist's fatal plane crash last year, found no mechanical problem with the plane and lists the probable cause as the pilot's intentional flight into a building as an act of suicide. Yep. Scott Bloomquist committed suicide on August the 16th, 2024. He was pronounced dead at the scene after the Piper J3C 65 Cub antique plane he was flying crashed into a barn on his family's property in Mooresburg, Tennessee. The NTSB released its report on the incident on June the 5th. A representative of Bloomquist's family released a statement in which they decline further comment on the report. At this time, the family of Scott Bloomquist is not making any public statements regarding the plane crash or the recent NTSB findings. They are focused on supporting one another and respectfully request privacy as they navigate this difficult period. We appreciate your understanding and ask that the media refrain from the further inquiries at this time. Bloomquist's passing came after a spectacular career in which he won more than 600 feature races, including a long list of crown jewel events. He was remembered by thousands of fans during memorials held in his honor last fall at Eldora Speedway in Rossburg, Ohio, and Volunteer Speedway in Bulls Gap, Tennessee. And his legacy lives on this year with the upcoming Flow Racing Night in America event on September 11th, named the Scott Bloomquist Memorial. Now, some of you who probably aren't in the know might be asking yourselves, well, if he committed suicide, then what would prompt him to commit such an act? What would prompt him to want to take his own life? Well, I'll tell you. Because in the year prior to his death, he had been waging a personal battle with a very terrible disease. A disease that I'm sure has affected everybody in one form or another. And that's cancer. Scott Bloomquist in 2023 was diagnosed with prostate cancer. And he basically was trying to go through bouts of chemotherapy, which had to put on hold his much needed back surgeries that he needed. But he had to put all those on hold because of his prostate cancer. Now, I'm pretty sure, I don't know what his thought process was, and I don't know what the doctors told him, because I wasn't there. So this is just speculation on my part, so take it with a grain of salt. But I would imagine that the prognosis that he was given by the doctors made him kind of reevaluate things. And he probably realized that the end was probably closer than he expected. And I guess that's why he decided, I'm not going to let this disease take my life. I'm going to go out on my own terms. Because a lot of his friends and family will tell you the same thing. He was always the kind of guy that marched to the beat of his own drum. He did things his way. He did it on his terms. And trust me, I do not condone suicide in any way, shape, or form. Especially with the effect that it can have on your friends and family. But maybe he felt like it was his only way out. Because chemotherapy, I mean, even though it's supposed to destroy the cancer, it also destroys your body. Because chemotherapy is essentially injecting poison into your body, a very terrible poison. And maybe he felt that it wasn't working, or maybe, I don't know. Maybe he felt that it wasn't going to work and he wasn't going to be able to ever drive a race car again. And I guess maybe in that moment he decided, if I can't race anymore, then what's the point in even going on? Again, I don't know what was going through his mind when he decided to make that final decision. We may never know. But we know the reason for it. He had been diagnosed with cancer, and that pretty much changed his life going forward. And I don't know if it ended up being a terminal diagnosis. I'm not sure. Because only Scott knew and only his doctors knew. But regardless, we shouldn't remember him for that final act. Because, quite frankly, that wouldn't be fair to him. It wouldn't be fair to his family, his friends, or his fans. Scott Bloomquist was one of the greatest dirt racers to ever live. His record speaks for itself. And his death on August the 16th of 2024, it left a gaping hole in the world of dirt racing so big that it's going to take a lot to fill. Because Scott Bloomquist, he was what we call in motorsports a generational talent. You don't see too many of his ilk anymore, and it's a shame. It really is, because he was, without question, one of the all-time greats. And he's going to be sadly missed. That's all I wanted to talk about. Just wanted to get on here and kind of touch base with this a little bit. Sad, man. It really is. I mean, we all kind of knew, but now that it's actually on the paperwork, the ink is dry, it sucks. Cancer is a terrible disease. I would know. I lost my grandmother on my mother's side to it a couple years ago. Literally weeks after losing my grandfather on my mother's side. I mean, she literally lost both of her parents within the space of 26 days. In October of, I think it was 2016. It was either 2016 or 2017. And for obvious reasons, she doesn't like the month of October anymore. For what I hope are obvious reasons. Cancer sucks. It really does. And even though Scott ended up taking his own life, things would have been a lot different without that cancer diagnosis. Who knows if he'd still be racing today? I don't know. But anyway, that's going to do it for this edition of Burnt Rubber. Thank you very much for watching. And may Scott Bloomquist rest in peace.